Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories.
The common thread through all my careers has been the fact that I have always been telling stories. If you really wanted to waste your time joining an ad agency, why did you even bother doing an MBA? We were debating why there needs to be a category of fiction called women's fiction. The express intention that we're told is deification, but I think it's an absolute destruction. It's not always about revolutions or aggression or belligerence. It can come from a very quiet place of acceptance on a daily basis. You do realize that in about 5 years, people won't need writers anymore, right?
The more you write, the more inward you keep getting. So then louder sounds, people all around, they start hassling you.
Writing is a very isolating, but it is also a very individual process. Don't write for free. Because don't look for the validation in other people's eyes when you can't respect your own writing. There's 78% of women who go on maternity leave, never come back to work and, fall out of the workforce. And from then, I think from that number, 50% leave in the first 4 months. And this is our general outlook on a huge section of society which is not allowed to age gracefully. We're not allowed that at all. We're not extended that courtesy. Truth be damned. From the time that we are kids, the way we are fed, the way we are kept away from dangerous things, the way we are prepared for the world is all been through storytelling, whether it's verbal, written. Storytelling and human beings, that connection is going nowhere. It is just that the format, times are changing. Methods are evolving, people's attention spans are evolving. So the format might change. And what we need to do as writers is just be aware and cognizant of what is coming our way.
So, hi Richa, welcome to today's episode. So, let's just start about your journey. What led you from journalism, advertising to becoming a full time writer? Tell me a little about the backstory.
Um, but I would say, very honestly, that the fact that I have lived through three careers. I'm in my third one now. I would owe it to I, s- I, s- I often say this with to a certain degree of curiosity, I guess experimentation, and a big dollop of plain and simple hubris. Because there was absolutely no methodical navigation, Mahua, from going from journalism to advertising to writing. I can just say the only common thread when I look back now is, when you look at the past and you have a little bit of a pause, then you look back and you can intellectualize and analyze. The only constant I had through all of it was a love for words, and I was absolutely a voracious reader. And I was mostly on the road a lot because we were just chatting about the fact that my father was in the services. I had three elder sisters to deal with. And I think books were my constant support and friends. And incidentally, I was always the new girl in the school, sitting in the canteen with the new dabba, trying to fit in. So I think books were my escape and also a grasp of reality at the same time. And they were a great source of comfort. As far as the careers were concerned, I think I genuinely believe, Mahua, that if we allow our selves to be surprised to some extent and not be overtly perturbed by what has been, decided for us or preordained. There are people who are born with an absolute clarity of purpose. Either it's driven by an innate, I guess, uh, you know, enchantment towards a certain profession or a certain, things or it is your in your immediate environment. For me, it was the civil services. So there are people like that, and then there are people like me who know that they need to tick the buckets in terms of education and experiences, and that is what I really appreciate my family for. That there was so much of movement and there was so much change, but what was a constant was the fact that we were always experiencing new things. There was a lot of storytelling, there were a lot of conversations. So this, I think, for a writer, I keep saying, it was a very rich environment for the writer and me to marinate, even though I wasn't prescient enough to know that I would become a writer. So I think the love of words, reading, storytelling, the appreciation of this entire ecosystem, somehow at the back of my mind was always in place. And the common thread through all my careers has been the fact that I have always been telling stories, whether it is in advertising. Well, in journalism first, I was having to create stories about criminals and business bureau and big businesses, and then I had to move to telling stories about so I could sell soaps and shampoos to unsuspecting housewives in advertising. So there was always a constant amount of storytelling, though In the middle of these two careers, I decided that I would finish my MBA because it was my father's, will at that point in time. I did that. But at the end of the MBA, he told me, he said, darling, if you really wanted to waste your time joining an ad agency, why did you even bother doing an MBA? Because, he thought, at day zero, I'll be going to the Davas and the Tatas of the world. And I came to him and I called him and I said, you know what? There's this ad agency called Leo Burnett has come on campus. And he said, ad agencies, do they even have the money to hire MBA graduates? I said, yes. So, so I said they're there, and I had this, interview, and they said, "What did they ask you?" And he's very numbers oriented and everything. And I said, they asked me how to sell a lipstick to an Eskimo. He said, "Wow, that isn't, there you go. This is what I've wasted my money on." But anyway, like I said, I really appreciate the fact that he didn't over intellectualize, at that point in time, what is going to be the return on my investment or where is this future? He just said, okay, fine, you feel like it, you go ahead. And I'd love to say that, Mohua, whether it was journalism, whether it was advertising, it's not that I was disenchanted by these professions and I was constantly meandering, looking for, ultimate career that would give me satisfaction. And I think that's a big disservice that is done to the generation of, these days, where everybody is, convinced that, look, 9 to 5 will never work for you. There are some people who I have had conversations with, they absolutely have no problem. They're very, they have
Yeah.
this, yeah, they have this outlook on life. They've, done a very relevant qualification. Their skill sets are good. They go
Yes.
into a job, but you're constantly fed, fed this diet of disenchantment, corporate slaves. I think the vocabulary is wrong, right? Because it's setting you up for disappointment. So I'm just glad that I was allowed to, meander and find my own way. And guess what? When I look back, it looks as if, I was going about my life willy-nilly. But the amount of time I spent in journalism, the amount of time I spent in advertising, creating those stories, balancing creativity and, pragmatism on a daily basis, all of that just made me, I guess, my world richer in terms of experiences. And that is what I guess very directly led into my, even the fact that I even thought of writing. So coming to my writing, well, some of these decisions just sound very impulsive and strange, but when things are meant to happen, they do. And I'm a firm believer in that. And like I mentioned earlier, that if you just allow yourself to be surprised and go with the flow, sometimes the path opens up on its own. A path clears up on its own. So I decided to write Mahwa at the juncture in my life which was absolutely chaotic, where I couldn't see anything in the horizon except diapers. And this is also this chaotic time, maternity leave, when most women somehow are surrounded by this chaos, but they also pause and they reflect on what they really want in life. Because for me, I think I thought, again, it was one of those conversations that I had with someone, and they said, fine, you finish your maternity leave and you're going to be integrated back and come back to work. And boy, was I in for a surprise, because it didn't flow as smoothly as somebody predicted it for me. And I mean, incidentally, this is a very sad statistic, Mahwa, that 78% of women who go on maternity leave never come back to work and, fall out of the workforce. And from then, I think from that number, 50% leave in the first 4 months. And neither did I have any idea that, all of this was waiting for me. Nor did I know that, I mean, it was, I didn't know what I was heading into. So at that point in time, I think words have a penchant for coming to my rescue, and they did. And I just used all the hilarity in my immediate environment and I channelized that into a book, which was my first book I didn't expect to be expecting. And what was most expected from me, a first time writer, was the fact that I would write in a very autobiographical sense. And I did do that. I used everything in my environment and poured it into that book. And that is how my writing journey began.
Amazing, Richa. So it's so funny that you say this because it's so relatable even for me. And I was like 7 months pregnant when I had, 7.5 months pregnant when I moved from Kolkata to Bangalore. And I had my child, and here I was in a city with no family, and no support structure, no support system, and a husband with an extremely demanding career. And you're dealing with your body, you're dealing with You've never known what it is, to have your clothes wet with milk that just, just wets your clothes out and they're sticky, right?
Yeah.
And your friends are all going ahead and getting ahead in life, and here you are, this huge maternal love, and there's such a huge person with your career, with your ambition, with your dreams, with your everything that you leave behind. And I remember that, at that time in Koramangala, I had seen one agency that was called brand.com, and it was like just a hop, skip, and a jump from my home. And on a pram, and those days Bangalore used to be really like, it wasn't very crowded, and the roads were, it was easier to navigate. And I used to take my child out, on the pram in the evenings, and I walked up in this pram with I used to wear clothes that were easy to feed your child, right? And I walked up and I said that, look, I know PR. Is it possible for you to give me a job? But I'll have to come in and leave, by during lunchtime, and again early in the evening, because by the time my child woke up. And yeah, and I think I'm so grateful for all of those things, because they somewhere also chart the path for people like many, many women like us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, Richa, you know what we need to, like, without meandering, I think we both have a lot in common to talk to each other. Let's talk about vigilantes. What inspired you to write this story, and what is the central theme of the book?
It's uh, when it comes to I was recently part of a panel where we were debating why there needs to be a category of fiction called women's fiction, because it makes us feel like lab rats, where there is only a certain straight jacketing of what is the kind of storytelling that comes from women. So it's amusing. But here's the thing: we use these opportunities to write very interesting stories that speak of our lens on the world, and write about strong women, which are very much the subject of which are the main ingredients of what Vigilantes is about. So within women's fiction, whether there's a category or not, I also tend to write comic thrillers, because which are an interesting mix of comedy, thrills, and it allows me to base it on a lot of interesting social commentary. So, Vigilantes is a comic thriller which is about a group of women who have been labeled past their prime. They are aunties. And this is our general outlook on a huge section of society which is not allowed to age gracefully. We're not allowed that
No.
at all. We're not extended that courtesy. Truth be damned, truths and facts, like, we've done our dues, we've produced children, we've tried to, bring value to every aspect of the homestead and beyond. It's almost as if at every juncture in life you're proving your worth, and it's no different, and it's especially harder for women beyond a certain age. And I'm going as young as 20s, 25, 30s, your aunties. You're put in your place. It's disparaging. It's a mentality. So keeping this label and this obsession of people with age and women aging, and what is it that they're doing at home, are you actually doing something, where is your productivity clock today? So just keeping all of this entire ecosystem of emotions in mind, I created a story which is about a group of women who, like I said, are aunties in a very, very typical stereotypical sense, and they're going about their lives, sending their children to different stratas of society, different age groups, but they're useless aunties. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, they are bonded by this very interesting purpose that they have identified for themselves, which is something to do with a social cause. And they band together and, deliver on that promise. But what also happens is that this is set in this backdrop of this crumbling old society. The two main protagonists are Philadelphia Wagmare, who's a teenager who's also trying to find her feet in life. And she lives with the other protagonist is Varsha Wagmare, who's her mum, who's very much like furniture. And our mums are very much like that for us in our lives. They're dependable people,
Yeah.
who give us the food, who are doing, ticking all the boxes, and then they're around. So this is pretty much the relationship we have with her mum. She has with her mum. And what happens is that nothing really happens in this crumbling old society till one day everything changes, where she finds out that not only is her sanskari mum a pradhan of a secret society, but she's also embroiled in a crime, and there's an investigation. and now Philly must take matters in her hands to ensure that her mum doesn't land up in jail. So what follows is it's a bit of a hilarious adventure, but also it's delivered through the conduit of the lives of these five women who are friends at different junctures and different responsibilities and different aspirations. And it's a story which kind of brings forth their stories and their trials and tribulations and their successes, but driven through a very social lens. So there's thrills, adventure. There's a cop who cooks. He's one of my favorite characters, and I keep hearing about him from readers. There's a Bengali cop called Bharatendu Bandyopadhyay who loves to cook while doing his investigations. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a mix of everything, because I tend to write meaty, hearty stories, which are set in various social milieus across India, Mahua, and it allows me to make a lot of, create a lot of evocative, meaningful stories, and I hopefully this is one of them.
Wonderful. So the book is set, in a very middle class Indian society, and this is like you said, a group of aunties like running a very secret operation. Okay, so most of these aunties are also leading a double life. Now, how did you come up with the idea? And I mean, and also, do you think this double life reflects the resilience, the hidden strength that so many women in society actually have?
When it comes to this concept of hidden strength, I feel so desperately sorry and enraged for all of us, because I think there are some of these terms, right? Inner strength, um, माँ के हाथ का खाना, सर्वगुण संपन्न, माँ हो तो ऐसी हो, औरत हो so ऐसी हो. These kind of coinages, what they tend to, the express intention that we're told is deification, but I think it's an absolute destruction
Agree.
of the concept of self and what I owe to myself and what you owe to yourself. It's meant to obfuscate, it's meant to confuse you, it's meant to, what is the term they use these days? Gaslight you, and convincing you that there is nothing in the self that needs attention. It's only everything in my environment and my periphery. So I think this is a battle that rages before it rages on the outside. I think there is women are innately engineered to towards self-loathing,
Oh,
taking a
yeah.
step back, questioning everything that we feel truly is something that we truly want or desire. Um, अपने बारे में ज़्यादा बोलो मत. Don't project yourself to be overconfident. Don't voice your desires. All of this, and
बस
feel
थोड़ा सा
guilty
पीछे
for
छुप के
yourself.
रहो.
चुप रहो, adjust करो, right?
हाँ.
So it just, I mean, it's so funny that we had this gathering recently, and there was a whole bunch of men and women, and it was supposed to be a cathartic discussion. And all the women, I said, "Do you feel guilty?" And they said, "Yes, all the time, every day, for this, for the
Yeah,
other." And we asked the men,
exactly.
and they were like, "What about today? Office?" I feel like, because it's it's
Yeah,
it's a feeling that is so easily available to us on a daily basis. So my
absolutely.
point is, coming back to the point, there is a lot of I guess there's a lot of disparity between how we project ourselves and what we feel internally. And that battle is very chaotic and very loud in our minds every single day, right? So when I was writing these stories, you can imagine, Mahua, that I was living with seven women in my brain alongside my own chattering mind. So, I was trying to do justice to the conundrum that you're talking about, that, we all lead double lives. So whether it's Shobha Gupta, who is this, rotund mum who's been told that because you're fat, you can never feel good about yourself. But she has the wherewithal to take, take care of two small kids and run a parlor from her own house. Small, it's like they say, small flights of fantasy. Then we have Lou Nongam, who's trying to bear the, financial responsibility of her family back home. There's Varsha Wagmare, who is very, very, very traditional, typical housewife who can't really even take her husband's name because it's not nice, and she says AG, OG, and Aankhon ki sharam and all of that. But she is managing to run a small business of her own, and has put together this secret society. So I think what I want to highlight through most of my stories, not just vigilantes, Mahua, is that this disparity and this confusion will, and these conundrums will continue on a daily basis, projected by society, and that is born of internal cogitation. But what I want to highlight is the fact that we have the internal resilience and strength, despite what strictures or traditional setups we belong to. that we can have our own, we can acknowledge who it is that we are. I think beyond asking about what we want, I think it's first acceptance of who we are, and being able to, do right by your family, do right by your work, and still exist for yourself. Because I just read this quote yesterday that your graveyards are full of people who thought that they had tomorrow. And this, I think this would apply to women much more than it does to
Oh, that's such a
men.
beautiful thing to say, Richa.
So, and we have to remind ourselves this on a daily basis, that whether it's our knees, whether it's our heart, whether it's our desires, whether it's, it's not about standing for yourself, is not about aggression or, I guess, it's not always about revolutions or aggression or belligerence. It can come from a very quiet place of acceptance on a daily basis, that today I will set forth in the world, I will do everything I need to do, but I will also take care of myself. I will also be kind to myself. If I can do that for 10 minutes a day, I will. So the battles will rage on, but I think it's happening. Our mothers never did it. Our grandmothers never did it. We are doing it, with a lot more headaches. But maybe going forward, our daughters and the granddaughters and what comes, following
Absolutely.
that, will do it a little more and a little easier than
Yeah.
than we do
They'll
it.
also have the vocabulary, Richa, which I did not have.
Absolutely.
I had no vocabulary. So, now let's talk a little bit about balancing humor with serious themes that can be so tricky. So, how did you manage to do that in Vigilantes? How did you, walk this tightrope?
So this tightrope is something I've been walking for a very long time, Mahua. It started with my foray into comic thrillers, which was Kanpur Khufia Private Limited. It continued with the next one in the series, which was The Curse of Kuldhara, and now Vigilantes. Um, I think humor. There's a very fine line between humor and pain, and comedy and tragedy. Because I think most observational humor is born from a place of intense observation, cogitation, and discontent, and often a lot of rage. So what tends to happen is that you accumulate all these observations in a sort of reservoir, and it's something that comes easily to us, and it's a reservoir that fills easily, because being women, being girls, we've grown up surrounded by uh, you know peculiar things that happen in our environment, to our mothers, sisters, denied opportunities, stifled voices, and all of this. And I'm not saying that we've all had pathetic childhoods and, we are really depressed people. It's just that um, when you're older, when you're a little more mature, you can reflect and look back at what has happened dispassionately. And that is when you can actually see it for what it is, as opposed to when you're immersed in it and when you are growing up.
It
So it is
takes
just
so
that.
long.
Yeah, it takes
It
a while.
takes so
It
long.
takes a while, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think all of that feeds into this reservoir. And when you're telling these stories, so initially what you tend to do is, what I did was, it was very autobiographical in that sense. But as you mature with the kind of storytelling that you do, you understand that there is an inspiration point in terms of an idea, and then after that you create an ecosystem. And for me, the purists will tell you that you have an idea, a germ of an idea. After that, you invest your every inch of your mind and your nerves on a plot, and figure it out. For me, I spend the maximum amount of time with characters first, because and what I gravitate towards, Mahua, is tier 2, tier 3 cities. I write in urban centers as well, but tier 2, tier 3 cities. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because of what you said about humor. I think the everyday minutiae, the routines, the people who are characters in themselves, when you are not going about life in this frenetic pace, you take a little bit of a pause and you can absorb all of this, and they become central. And this kind of hilarity, this kind of environment becomes central to a lot of my storytelling, which allows me to balance out the most serious things I write about. So if I were to just broadly scan the topics I have, the themes that I have covered across my books, Mahua, I've spoken about sexual exploitation, I've spoken about divorce, I've written about misogyny, gender roles. These are not laughing matters. There's nothing
No,
to laugh
not
about.
at all.
But the fact that I use humor as a tool, I find it as a very liberating and expansive tool, because gone are the days when you can point your finger at someone and say that, this is wrong, this is right. We live in a very easily offended world. So what humor allows me to do is, in a very subtle way, say all the impactful things I need to say, which will just basically just scratch your, maybe consciousness a little bit and make you think. And so this is the balancing that I try and do. Once I know I have a clear story, and I know that my characters are in place, I have created my world already, and then I use humor as a tool to navigate all of the entire storyline. Also, what helps me, Mahua, is I don't write very serious dark thrillers. I gravitate towards cozy mysteries. And what that allows me to do is, there's different branches of comedy. There's Schadenfreude, which is a German term for, humor that comes from somebody's misfortunes. There is situational slapstick comedy. There's all kinds of comedy. The kind of humor I gravitate towards is observational comedy. The life of comedy, the humor of life, manner, people around you. The PG Woodhouse style kind of dry,
Yes.
wit humor. That kind of
Yeah.
comedy. So I think all of this kind of storytelling allows me to flex it out and accommodate a story, interesting characters, and thrills. And it's just about balancing the elements after that.
Fantastic. You've written for various publications, contributed to anthologies, and you've also been featured in prestigious magazines. So, how do you navigate this literary world and keep up, with its various changes? It has changed from before. So, how do you keep that up?
By telling myself that nothing is constant. Because
Wonderful.
from the day that I entered this industry, Mahua, I just learned one thing, that if you take yourself too seriously, or anything that comes to you too seriously, one day you can be feeling like a queen, and the other day you'll be feeling like a pauper, and you'll just be brought down to your
Absolutely.
knees, right?
Agree.
So being too attached to anything, I know I'm sounding like Sadhguru right now, but I think
No,
it's
but I
this one
agree.
industry that brings you
Yeah.
to your knees and reminds you to be patient and humble. I think I was already a patient and humble person, but I think even more so now. And as far as the change is concerned, it's been changing every single day, month, and year, Mahua. I was told that there's a certain kind of stories working this year. Guess what? A few months down the line, the publishers don't think that way. I was told that in the film writing world, there's a certain kind of, this is working with this cross section with these sort of leads. You present something, absolutely not. Give me a reference point, or maybe we can do this next year. You're talking about writing books. People are saying books are dying. Readers are nowhere. Then you start writing audiobooks and somebody just tells you, look, that, this per revenue model just doesn't work. Audiobooks are not working. You name
Oh,
it.
God.
you
Yes.
know, you name it.
Yes.
And now I sit, I sit at these gatherings and people are like, you do realize that in about 5 years, people won't need writers anymore, right?
Yes, I hear that all the time.
So if there is one industry, and I'm focusing on one, so I'm sure this applies across industries, which reminds you about the impermanence of life and everything around you, it is this, right? So at the end of it, Mahua, instead of being intimidated, if I allow myself to be from morning till night, I will be stressed about what I'm writing, who I'm selling to, who my publisher is, will they accept my next, how am I selling this, what am I saying in my next promotional,
Agree.
tour. It's too much. And
I
then you
agree.
cannot, write. So I've realized that storytelling, that is something that is so natural and organic that it is going nowhere. We have a penchant for the most depressing prophecies, and people keep saying everything about fashion, books, and the same. I just keep feeling that everything is seasonal. Storytelling is not going anywhere. From the time that we are kids, the way we are fed, the way we are kept away from dangerous things, the way we are prepared for the world, is all been through storytelling, whether it's verbal, written. Storytelling and human beings, that connection is going nowhere. It is just that the format, times are changing. Every,
Yeah.
methods are evolving. People's attention spans are evolving. So the format might change. And what we need to do as writers is be, I guess, is just be aware and cognizant of what is coming our way. But as long as I remind myself at the end of the day that, look, I am a storyteller, I might have to market, I might have to be my publicist, I might have to record myself and all of these, responsibilities. But at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. As long as I'm, writing stories that mean something to me and are authentic and come from a place of honesty, everything else will, there will come a time for everything else beyond that, and everything else, all the processes I need to address after that. Because
I
if
wish I could hug you right now Richa, because you've spoken to my heart, and you're talking to so many of us who often go through all these predicaments, that what are you pursuing? Because this whole hustle culture is very difficult as a writer, because writing can be a very solitary and sometimes a very daunting process. And also, I think the more you write, the more inward you keep getting. So then louder sounds, people all around, they start hassling you. And I have noticed that humongous change in my own personality from the time I began writing, like an everyday habit. It's like me drinking water, is what I do with writing. So tell me, is there any particular discipline that you follow, in your writing routine? Maybe people who are aspiring to become authors, they all want to learn maybe from you. So what is it that you would like to share with them?
Um, what I'd like to say is that writing is like you said, it's very isolating, but it is also a very individual process for every single writer. There are tomes that have been written about writing processes and such, and there's always merit in understanding a perspective from another writer. But the way I have genuinely found my own niche and what works for me and my process is in between many of these books. It's what I discovered on a daily basis, which will not tell me what to do when I've locked myself in a room and there are multiple doorbells going off and there are
Yeah.
calls and there are sessions to do and all of that. Nobody answers all those questions. So that is a personal journey that I think you have to traverse and figure out on your own. So again, something that works for me across the board in life, I think, is just moderation and fluidity. Just being flexible, Mahua, and that is something that I've applied to my writing process as well. I do know that I am an intuitive writer, but I have now learned my lesson that when this kind of chaos is unfolding around the table of women writers, especially, I know of a lot of men writers who are friends, but they've got these retreats and these, lovely little hideaways, and they go away in hotels and resorts and here and there and write. And I'm very happy for them, but it's not something I have access to right now.
Most of us don't.
Most of us don't. So,
No.
which is why, with the chaos that's unfolding around us, what we need to do for ourselves in our writing is just to promise ourselves the discipline of structure and returning to that table. It sounds very prosaic, but it's some of the most incredible, life advice is very, very simple. It's just about structuring your writing. Even if you're an intuitive writer, it doesn't matter on a day when you have five disconnected, disembodied voices around you and you go back to your table, if you have a starting point, if you have a reference point from the previous day and you know today this is what I'm supposed to write, you will sit down and be able to write, as opposed to revisiting what you were doing 3 days before and losing your mind again. So I think when it comes to plotting, structuring, breaking down your story into sections and cohesive scenes, and graphs, that really, really has started helping me over the last couple of books. Initially, I just used to, just write a very broad outline and just say, what is my mood today? Guess what? I feel like an angry, sweaty hound on most days. So there is no mood that's coming to my rescue. So I think marrying the intuition and the structure driven, methodical side of you is very important in order to be an efficient writer. And in addition to that, as long as you can give yourself a concerted amount of time, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, night, when everybody's gone to sleep, whatever works for you. But having the discipline to come back to it every single day is very important. And that's what works for me. And like I said, I like keeping it flexible because the most rigid structures crumble, with one jolt.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and then it causes frustration more than anything else. If I've not been able to do something and I'm staring at it and I'm not being able to, then that frustration is going to lead to a writer's block as well. So,
Absolutely.
flexibility, structure, discipline, and just snatching all the moments you can to write, because it is a snatch. It feels like the snatch that I do at the gym. I'm snatching moments to write, but that's what it is.
So could you read an excerpt from the book, for our listeners, Richa?
Absolutely. If I can just lean back and pick up here. Yes.
Can you show us the
Okay.
cover, please? Yes. Thank
Amit
you.
Malhotra, this is a big thank you to you. He's the gentleman who designed the cover for us, and it's an absolute delight. Okay, it's very difficult to pick. Okay, but I have picked. Okay, I hope this gives you a bit of an insight into this world. Um, Varsha watched her husband from the dining table as she expertly shaped besan laddus and stacked them into a pyramid. This was her world, the one she controlled and understood, glistening, generous rivulets of ghee, the dense aroma of roasting flour, the crumbling and pliable khoa that she could mold in her hands, the gentle sizzle of an orange jalebi as it capitulated to the hot oil and created a sweet, invisible spell that she could use to delight people and spread happiness. In stark contrast, the man sitting across the table belonged to another world. He was biting into one side of his toast like a beaver. Then he would go on to replicate the same action on the other end. Eating bread with mathematical precision was one of the ways his OCD manifested. Going by the regimentation he ran his life with, one would be forgiven for thinking that he hailed from an army background or had a whole line of ancestors marching to the borders in service of their country. Instead, the Wagmares were a manufacturing godown of chartered accountants. Pramod Wagware was a 50-year-old small build, running his quotidian affairs like a controlled and immaculate calculations in his ledgers, not a button, snot, or a fare out of place. She noticed how he repeatedly tucked his shirt in and out, attempting to prevent it from bunching over his trouser belt. Pagal aadmi, she would mutter to herself. At present, she was trying her level best to get him out of the house. Once Philly and her husband left, she could truly focus on finishing any pending orders and get down to the very important business.
Wonderful, Richa. That was amazing. So we are going to do a quick, rapid fire round. So just say the first thing that comes into your mind. Tea or coffee?
Black coffee, yes.
One book you wish you had written.
I don't want to get into this polarizing debate of whether it's history or mythology, but the Mahabharata. Gosh, from spirituality to the perfect pot boiler with amazing storylines and characters and so gripping, the Mahabharata,
Favorite writing spot?
my desk.
A book adaptation you loved.
There would be many really, but I would say Nauka Dubi, which is the
Nokadubi.
boat wreck by Rabindranath Tagore.
Nokadubi, yeah.
Nauka Dubi. And I think Wuthering Heights, they did a lovely job of
Oh,
that.
yes. Oh, yes.
I was in love for a while, for a long while.
Absolutely. I think all of us at that certain age when we began reading Wuthering Heights. 3 words that describe vigilantes.
I'm not one for brevity, but since I've been asked three, I guess bold, unique, and entertaining.
The best and worst advice you've received about writing.
The best would have to be don't sell your writing short. Don't write for free. Because don't look for the validation in other people's eyes when you can't respect your own writing. So, I mean, negotiating and accepting a few things that come your way initially is fine, but respect your own writing, respect the worth of your words. It'll hold you in good stead through your career. That would be the best. The worst is, I think there's so many. I'd be hard pressed to remember, but I remember there was this very asinine comment from this very senior writer who said that being a woman writer is going to really help you. Use it to your advantage. So anyhow, I think I have what I've used to my advantage is my power of storytelling, and if I can do it with a pretty face, great. But I don't think I have based my entire career on the fact that I can bat my eyelids at people and you know uh, use my woman card to my advantage. So I think that was very silly from somebody who was so senior, and it happens a lot in across industries where a lot of people you look up to. They say never meet your heroes or heroines for that matter. They'll disappoint you. So I would like to say that, when you meet these people, meet them here, pick up what makes sense to you and please ignore the rest because it tends to demoralize you and the world is not what they make out to be. So
Thank you so much, Richa, for taking all the time and being in today's episode. Absolutely enjoyed it. Wishing Vigilantes the best and many more writing from you. We look forward to. Thank you.
thank you so much, Mama. It's been an absolute pleasure.